Hello, South by Southwest. I hope you are keeping well. I miss seeing you all in Austin and being able to learn together and have fun. My name is Niamh McQuillan. I'm the coordinator of professional learning in Baltimore County Public Schools. I'm a women in leadership coach, and I curate the website Ripple Out, which is a forum for women's intentional leadership. And our topic today is Women Power, the original natural resource. Recently, I was in New York City at the Metropolitan Museum of Art to see three artists, Michelangelo, Rodin, and Hockney. And while I was waiting for my sisters at the crossroads of these exhibits, it struck me the billions of dollars that had been spent by the museum and by New York City, and not one female artist was in sight. Well, the crossroads suddenly became a portal to time travel, the coolest superpower ever. And as I whished through the millennia, I saw men in front of sculptures and canvases, and I saw women on the sidelines carrying water and babies. And I wondered, what happened to all of their ideas? And what happened to all of their thoughts and questions that they had? Did they just dissipate into the universe? And what is the impact on a world when 50% of all ideas never even make it to the table? The topic of women in leadership became personal for me a couple of years ago when I started a new job, much higher profile position. And while I navigated the choppy waters of politics and male power dynamics, it had never been to the extent that I'd experienced in this job. It became clear to me pretty soon that men's opinions were welcome and women's were not. And I had to stay in this job for another 6 months. So I turned to other women that I knew who were brilliant and smart, with tons of experience, and none had any solutions to the issues that I faced. I saw that I was going to have to find answers by myself. So I read and I researched and I dug deeper, and a couple of things bubbled to the surface. The first thing was that the leadership models that we have in place are thousands of years old, and they're based on the male experience, which tends to be vertical. I also saw that while some women can thrive in this leadership structure, by and large, women's leadership models tend to be more community-based and horizontal. And I also saw that when I was studying leadership in my master's degree, that the leadership that I studied was male, and it was abstract, it was theoretical. There was no course called, but what do you do when the shit really hits the fan? So all this studying also brought me to some new understandings. I saw that my instinct was correct, that 11% of all art purchased by major museums in America since 2008 has been by women. So that means for every 9 pieces of art by a man, only 1 is by a woman. I learned that 51% of our population in America is female. And yet, at its highest percentage, women in leadership roles in any industry never exceeds 18%. So I'm going to say that again. At its highest percentage, women in leadership roles in any industry never exceeds 18%. I also learned that in organizations where women hold 35% of leadership roles in a company, profits go up by 15%. That's pretty cool. I also learned from Project DRAWDO. It's an environmental organization that researches solutions for reducing carbon emissions. That the number six ranked solution is educating girls, and number 7 solution is providing family planning for women. I learned from a UN study that when women hold office, even in the most politically combative environments, that they're able to reach across the aisle far more successfully than men are. We can look at Jacinda Ardern, who's the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and see her swift response to the mosque massacre that was incredibly compassionate. It resounded around the world. We can also look at Johanna Sigurdardóttir, who was Prime Minister of Iceland from 2009 to 2013, and she credits her country's recovery from the brink of bankruptcy to the role women played in her government. So all these numbers are really cool, and you think 1 + 1 would equal 2, but it doesn't. If we continue on our current trajectory, women will not reach leadership parity until 2085. It's a long time. And at this point, it's beyond an equity issue. It's really a resource issue. Because what is the impact on our world when 50% of all ideas are not making it to the table? So these are a lot of big numbers, kind of huge and unmanageable, and they kind of make you want to take a nap. So how do we get our arms around this to have something we can actually work with? Well, all of this thinking led me to my eureka moment. And like all eureka moments, it was banal. I walked into my bedroom and looked out the window, and I thought basic rights for women are not being met. We don't have a solid foundation to walk on. We walk on quicksand, but because we've been doing it our whole lives, it becomes normal. And this eureka moment led me to create the Women and Leadership Framework. So like any good educator, I grabbed a piece of paper and scribbled down my ideas. And what I saw was that this leadership framework provides a language for women to name and own their leadership experiences. And it provides a structure for women to see what it is they need to move forward. Now, the framework can be seen through a number of different lenses: the legislative, the organizational, the educational, and personal. And for our purposes today, we're going to be looking at it through the personal lens. Now, before we do that, I want to just take a step back to our original point of view, and I want us to revisit the male experience and the female experience, and understand that this was all looked at through the male leadership model. So what I want to do is take all of those ideas and those questions that women had, and I want to drop them into the Women and Leadership Framework. Now, as you can see, I modeled it after Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you can see there are 3 different sections that we're going to be going through. And yes, I know I have broken the cardinal rule of PowerPoint slides by putting way too much information on one slide. So let's break it down piece by piece. So what the framework does is it provides the structure for women to understand their experiences. And I do a lot of workshops with women in doing this framework, and what they always say is that it makes complete sense, that it gives them sort of like a structure to understand the stories of their leadership experience. What I also see, women also see, is that where they were blocked and stopped in their leadership trajectory. And then at the end, what they're able to see is what they need to do in order to be able to move forward. So let's start with looking at the framework by sections. So let's consider, I love that word, let's consider basic needs to start off with. Reproductive rights, the most basic right of all women. Our decision, our ability to be able to decide when and if we are going to have children. And there's an image that always comes to mind when I look at this, and I see a woman in front of a panel of white men, and they are making decisions about her reproductive rights and about her body. And what I would love to see is a picture of a white middle-aged man in front of a panel of women of all ages and all colors, and they are the ones who get to make decisions about whether or not he can have access to Cialis and Viagra. Wouldn't that be cool? Let's consider basic childcare. I was stopped in my work when I had my first child. I was 3,000 miles away from home, and my husband's family had never navigated the world of childcare. And in the family, there was also this sort of like unsaid belief that a woman could not be a mother and have ambitions for work as well. And it was also implied that because I was the one who had the baby, that it was my job to take care of and provide childcare. Let's consider women's physical and emotional safety. By virtue of the fact that we're born women, our experience of safety is very different from men. Think about how many times that you have not gone somewhere or done something because you're afraid for your physical safety. Think about, too, sexual harassment. You know, how many times has something been said that was either blatant or subtle, and you've been stopped in your tracks? You've wondering how you've shown up. You've wondered, you know, did I hear what I just thought I heard? And then you ask yourself, what is the cost of calling it out? And what is the cost of not calling it out? Pay equity. Let's consider pay equity. Women make 82 cents, between 82 cents and 49 cents to the dollar that a man makes. If we look at it a different way, that means over the course of a year, a woman is going to be working for free from between 2 to 6 months. Consider the impact of that over 40 to 50 years of work. Now let's look at the psychological needs and consider networks and mentorships. Men's networks are thousands of years old. Women's are 50 years old at best. And, you know, I used to always think that networking was kind of a little bit sort of it was kind of suspicious. It was something that you were doing to get something that you needed at the cost of other people. And ironically, it was my son who taught me and showed me that networks are really just a way of creating a web of connectivity to the rest of the world. Consider women in conscious partnership. A theme I hear when I do the workshops is that women sometimes feel have been betrayed by other women. You know, what would it be like to know that women unquestionably and intentionally have your back at all times? Consider beauty and body images. How many times have you walked into a room and wondered whether or not your hair, your clothes, your makeup, the way you look, your size, your shoes, were you right? And has that stopped you in being who it is that you know you can be? I worked with a woman who noticed a direct correlation between her body size and her leadership trajectory forward. And the final section is self-actualization. And consider giving yourself the time and the space and the right to be able to know who you are and what it is that you want. And the right to actually say that. I mean, how many times have you compromised or agreed to doing something you don't want to do because you don't want to be seen as demanding? You don't want to be seen as making waves. You want to be seen as nice. So when working with the framework, I can see that at the heart of all of this are unconscious cultural beliefs that we carry around with us. They infiltrate everything we do. And because they are as familiar as the air we breathe, we don't even notice them. And they're as unseen. They're as unseen as the air we breathe. And it's these unconscious cultural beliefs that keep women on the sidelines and have kept us so for the millennia. So as we move forward, I'm going to leave you with two questions. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, what are you tolerating? I want you to carry this question around with you in your pocket. And I want you to start to see and name those structures that are in place that keep women and you and our leadership at 18%. The second question I want to ask you is, for you to carry around with you, is what is possible when women recognize that their power, that your power, is the original natural resource? What is possible for our world when all ideas finally make it to the table? Thank you, Southwest. I hope and pray that you all stay well, and I look forward to seeing you next year in Austin. Bye-bye.